When I was young, I was always fascinated by wood. There's just something about it. It's not like metal, it's not uniform. Every piece of wood is different. I enjoy the aroma when you cut it. It's amazing. Every piece of wood has its own aroma. I also was fascinated by the fact that you could work it with your hands pretty much with a hand tool. You can chisel it, you can saw it. Metal's a little bit harder to do that too. In metal you have to weld. Wood you could glue. So I became fascinated with it and tried to make things out of it. Whatever I could get my hands on a piece of wood, be it at the lumber yard out of their scrap bin or out of my dad's fruit cellar stealing the shelves. I would try to get my hands on a piece of wood. As I got a little bit older, I started to think, maybe I could make a guitar, but it just seemed impossible to imagine how you could bend the sides just for one aspect of it. There was no instruction. I had no direction really where to start. And my wife happened to find a book. She was looking around one day and it had just come out. It was written by Irving Sloan called Classical Guitar Construction, and there it was. It showed how to bend a side. Initially, building the guitars was a huge learning curve. I mean, I had some background in woodworking, but this was really precise location of frets and the shape of the neck, and the bridge has to be in the right place, and the braces, that's the whole key to the guitar is the sound and the intonation and the playability. And when I started out making my first guitar, I was very optimistic, but by halfway through it, I already realized that I'd made so many mistakes that I had lost interest in that one. I couldn't wait to start the next one. So I got to a point where I actually could make a pretty good guitar, but I could not sell them. Music stores weren't interested. They were unknown. People weren't buying handmade guitars back then in this time, and suppliers were hard to come by. So I ended up selling most of them in the beginning to my friends and the church group I belonged to. They'd gather at the church picnic, and there'd probably be 15, 20 Olson guitars gathered around the campfire. It was hard. I still couldn't find the market for my guitars, and I was really having a hard time keeping up with the bills and paying rent, in spite of my wife helping me. Our church, inner city group of people, bought a large commercial building, and they said, how would you like to move your shop into the church? We have this 1,200 square foot area, and it was a opportunity I couldn't pass up, but it meant I would also have to be the church janitor. I would clean the toilets and do the work, but it allowed me the freedom at least to have my tools there and to move forward without the burden of the financing, the rent and things. So it was a good opportunity for me. In 1984, I was fortunate to meet guitarist Phil Kagi. He was the venue that brought me into the national forefront there in many ways, because like an artist, you can paint wonderful pictures, but if people don't see them, how are they ever going to know about you? And Phil was the person that was doing concerts, an incredible guitarist, and he liked my guitars, which was just amazing to me. He bought the first cedar top guitar that I ever made, actually, still plays them to this day, and Phil is what helped me to get known nationally, and for that I'm forever grateful. I was a huge James Taylor fan. When Sweet Baby James album first came out, I tried to learn every song on there and sound like James. But boy, he was a good player, and it was hard. But so as the years went by, I always had in the back of my mind, wouldn't it be great if only he could play one of my guitars? In 1989, I had that opportunity. I had an opportunity to bring a guitar and leave it in a hotel room. And I was flabbergasted when I was doing my janitor duties the following Monday when the phone rang, and it was James responding to the guitar I had left with a note saying, call me if you like it. And he did like it. and he wanted me to actually build him 2 others. And that was the start of international as well as national acclaim, something that money just couldn't buy. So during this time with Phil and James touring the country with my guitars, I was still doing the janitor work. My shop was still in the church. It was part of my duties. So interestingly enough, sometimes I would be in rubber gloves, and Leo Kotke would come by, and my shop door was closed, but there was a little sign saying, if the door is locked, please check upstairs. The secretary would say, oh, I think he's in the ladies' bathroom, and Leo would come in and find me on my hands and knees scrubbing the toilets. With James Taylor touring the country, Phil Kagi, Justin Hayward from the Moody Blues, Leo Kotke, touring the country with my guitar, I began to get a little bit of attention in the magazines and on stage from them. So the orders started coming in, and it became evident that I'm going to have to make this a full-time adventure. I can't be in the church and helping them clean toilets anymore. So in 1992, I was able to move into the current property that I'm still in Circle Pines, Minnesota. It's a 10-acre property, and I have a 3,200 square foot shop about 150 feet from my house. And it's served me and still is serving me very well. Over the years, I've had to build a lot of my own machinery. One of the larger projects I took on was making an abrasive sander, a large belt that thickness sands the wood. I used parts from an old motorcycle disc brake. I used regulators off old beer kegs. A lot of the parts were bought commercially, like the jacks that lower and raise the bed, and I had some parts rubber coated here right in the cities for the pinch rollers. But it was a hodgepodge, Rube Goldberg thing, trying to emulate or copy an existing machine. I'm still using it to this day, by the way, and it's served me very well. In recent years, I've been very fortunate to be able to afford some commercially made machines. One of the largest and most fascinating in my shop is a Fadal CNC machining center. It's programmed from a computer program. You will actually draw the part, and then it can machine it by actually picking its own tool and following the program that was drawn. If you can draw it, it can machine it. You do have to make fixturing to hold the parts, and I had to learn how to operate this. It was quite an undertaking, almost a second occupation. But I've gotten to the downside of it and overcome most of the obstacles, and it's now producing parts for me and putting me into the age of technology and saving on my worn out arms on some of the more strenuous operations. My story is certainly not unique. Anybody that sets out to make guitars is going to find setbacks and triumphs and failures, successes, but there's just something about it. I think it's like a musician wanting to play guitar. You just wake up in the morning and you have to do another one. Even if there's not financial remuneration or rewards, you do it anyway. You do it in spite of the fact that you can't make money at it. It's just something that is there. I don't know how to describe it, but it feels like it was chosen for you and you just had to walk in it.
Celebrate today.
I'm Jim Olson, and I make guitars.